discovered my space bar does not work very well. Lectern etiquettes. When creating your introduction and delivering it, it's important that the introducer maintain eye contact with the audience throughout the introduction. There's no need for the introducer to be looking at the person they're introducing while they're introducing them. So maintain eye contact throughout. Once you've actually spoken the person's name at the end of that introduction, then you can turn your attention to that person and bring them on stage. One of the key elements of being in any sort of a host role, and as an introducer you're a host, is that you need to lead the applause. And after you've spoken the person's name, you lead the applause to bring them onto the stage. And until they come all the way up to the stage, you maintain that applause. When they arrive at the lectern, you shake hands with them. And one of the nice ways to observe protocol, when the speaker comes up to the lectern, if you then go away from the lectern in the opposite direction to the speaker, that's probably the best way to observe good protocol at the lectern. Now, we sometimes talk about the fact that we don't want to cross in front of the speaker to go back to our seat. Well, we certainly don't want to do that. But it's even better not to walk behind the speaker. It's better to go back to a seat the opposite direction. Now, that might be inconvenient if your seat is on this side and the speaker's coming up from that side. But in that sort of a case, it might be a good idea to simply find a chair on the other side, go and sit there during the duration of that speech, and then come back. Now, one of the last points here, and I found this particularly interesting. I don't know if any of you have seen some of the speech contests, the World Champion of Public Speaking DVDs that we've got. But it's interesting to see the video shots of the speaker with the person who introduced them in the background. And the last point here is to show interest, especially if you're in eye contact, if you're within the vision of the audience. Because you're still in a position of authority. You've introduced the speaker, you've led the applause, you've gone and sat down, and now if you appear to be bored out of your tree, it affects the audience. And it's important that you maintain that interest, stay engaged, make it look like you're interested even if you're not. It's an important part of that role. Stay engaged. So my point, actually, about the speech contest was in one of those speeches, I noticed that the person who introduced them had actually sat back down and was just looking around, not interested at all. And this is the guy that won the World Champion of Public Speaking, not interested, looking around. It actually sends a very bad message. So it's really important to stay engaged. Introductions are only the beginning. This really is about bridging comments. So what happens after you've finished with the speaker and you go back up to the lectern? You have maybe 30 seconds or so to make some summary comments. And you can hit on a few different areas. You can talk about some of the speech's ideas. One of the really nice things is to talk about points of entertainment. So if the speaker said something that was really funny and the audience laughed, if you can tie some sort of a comment into something that made the audience laugh, that's a brilliant way to bridge. So that's something to look for and to make a note of when you're listening to the actual speaker. You can also comment about ways in which the speech actually helped the audience or provided some definite point of interest that would have been a benefit. And then lastly, of course, you can provide various words of thanks and appreciation for the speaker having come up and delivered that speech. And so to conclude, presenting a complete yet concise introduction does a tremendous service, not only to the speaker in creating a friendly environment to come up and present, but also to the audience in helping to really set the stage for an effective presentation. And once you master the art of introductions, you'll have taken your speaking skills another step forward and earned the appreciation of both the speakers and the audience. And now I'd like to turn the floor back to our Toastmasters.